on Monday night.
Hello everyone, welcome to week 4 of the NFL season, week 2 of the NFL Pick'em, here presented by the Warlock Hour on anotherpodcast.com. We're going to get to Tyler in just a moment. I just wanted to record this little intro. As you may have noticed, I changed the opening intro, and that's because I needed some Hank Williams Jr. in there, and that's the only reason why. So we kind of cut out part of the intro that I didn't really particularly like from last week, and put in some Hank Williams Jr. to kick us off. Are you ready for some football? Let's get to the picks. At first, we're going to sit down with Tyler and look over the last week's picks, but let's get to that recording right now, because it was recorded a little bit earlier this evening, and I'm going to add that in right now. Alright, welcome back everyone. This is week 2 of the NFL Pick'em. We are on week 4, of course, of the NFL, because we just started it in week 3. So let's take a look back at week 3, Tyler.
Let's do that.
Wow.
I'm a little embarrassed by some of the stuff I said.
I don't think you need to be embarrassed about what you said. I think a lot of teams need to be embarrassed of how they played.
Number 1 on that list?
New York Giants.
The New York Giants.
I think that's
Wow.
number 1 on everybody's list.
They didn't even score.
Like
They did
38
they
to
did
nothing. 38
Against
to 0.
Carolina.
I had Eli Manning starting in one of my fantasy leagues. You know how many points he got me?
Negatives?
No, he actually had positives. 1.9.
That is impressive.
That is impressive considering how badly they played. He has turned the ball over so many times. They are not controlling that ball. And you know what? In the first game, you could kind of blame David Wilson. All 3 games, he's turned the ball over way too much. You have to, the main thing in football, protect the ball.
Well, I know Pittsburgh and New York are tied with -6 in the turnover ratio.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, but at least Pittsburgh put up a fight.
Well, until Roethlisberger decided that it was better for Chicago to have the ball than the Steelers.
That's true. The late stages of that game kind of fell apart, but they put up a fight early. New York didn't put up a fight. It was like there was nothing left after the first quarter.
The Giants kind of just whimpered and curled into a ball in the corner and said, "Do your worst. We're done."
Yeah, there was a lot of teams that lost this week that nobody, like I said last week, I do the CBS Pick'ems, and just looking at the coaches, okay, Coach Cowher went 8-8, Dan Marino 8-8, Shannon 9-7, Boomer 9-7. Nobody could have predicted how badly this would be as far as a week was concerned, because there looks to be some games in there that just should have been gimmies, and they weren't. The Browns won.
Yeah, but they were both 0-2. That's not really an upset.
But it was Minnesota with Adrian Peterson, which is something we said should have been a deal breaker right there.
It should have been.
And we even said, I actually listened back to it because I had to re-pick up your picks because I forgot to save my little notepad. I listened back to it. You had even said that Christian Ponder was the number 1 quarterback. Yet that Hoyer kid came in and, man, he lit it up.
Well, he also threw 3 interceptions.
He did, but he had 300 yards, I believe, and 2 touchdowns.
Who knew that trading away a first-round pick, Heisman-winning running back would lead to your first win?
First victory. And they've already declared Hoyer the starter for this coming week, even though Brandon Weeden looks like he's ready to play. They want to get him some more practice time. I found out last week we thought he was benched. He was benched, but it was because he actually sprained his thumb, his throwing hand. So there was a reason that he was benched.
Other notable games, I'm impressed with Kansas City.
Kansas City 3-0. We both picked Philly.
I know. And I thought Philly's offense would do something.
Yep.
But I watched that game.
Yeah. It was a Thursday night game, so everybody watched that game, and they came in and they tore it up.
look at Kansas City. Their defense completely shut down that offense, which is still pretty decent. They have a lot of weapons, completely shut them down. Their running game for the Chiefs was awesome. Jamal Charles had a great game. Believe me, I was against him in fantasy this week. And then Alex Smith didn't make any mistakes.
No, and
he
that's
threw the ball. He connected with his receivers, and they pushed the ball. They scored points. They did everything.
Him and, like, I'm not comparing Alex Smith with Peyton Manning, but their style, their drop-back quarterbacks, they're showing that the drop-back quarterback is still in play. It's not going to be all read option like Kaepernick and Russell Wilson and RG3.
I'm not a huge fan of the read option quarterback.
Well, no, but they have success.
Plays. They do have success, but they have the most success against unorganized defenses. When they run into a tight, well-executed top-tier defense, they're not as successful.
Okay, and the other one I want to point out, the other kind of surprising game was Indianapolis walking into San Francisco and coming away with I believe it was 27-7 victory.
I know. I saw a funny picture on the internet today where Harbaugh's in the dressing room saying, "Okay, listen up, everybody. Does anyone have Alex Smith's phone number?"
Yeah. Like, I mean, seriously, like, Indianapolis walks into your home. And yes, they kind of had the, I don't know what you call it, but they had the momentum. They just traded for basically a number one running back. But he still had to learn the offense, right? He only had a week. Less than a week, actually. The trade was on a Tuesday, so he only had one practice, and then the Friday walkthroughs, and then that was it. So, I mean, he didn't do a lot. Don't get me wrong. He didn't, like...
Hey, he did enough. He had a touchdown. He had some good runs.
50 yards, I believe, and 56 yards and a touchdown, I think, or something like that. But going into San Francisco, after San Francisco came off that huge loss to Seattle, everybody thought, okay, San Francisco's coming home. They're going to defend their home turf. They're going to want to get payback on whoever they were playing. Yet Indianapolis walks in there, 27-7. Wow.
Honestly, though, as good as the Colts played, there's people in that organization that got to be looking at what Denver's doing, going, man, if we had kept Manning and we had traded for Welker,
Yeah, I mean, but when you have the number one pick in the draft, you're going to draft the best player available.
True, but it doesn't mean. But for quarterbacks, starting a first-year rookie quarterback is not always the best idea.
No, and last year they had some success though.
Because I mean, they did have some success, but imagine how much more success they could have had if they had kept Peyton Manning and let Andrew Luck just for one season, if only.
Said they should have kept Manning. They should have Luck, Tudor under Manning, but they really wanted to go in the other direction. They wanted to build this team around Luck, and you know what? I can kind of understand that. I think it was stupid on their part, but I can understand it from their
hindsight. In hindsight, It does seem kind of silly.
They didn't think that
with the information they had, it was still a good decision. But with what Manning's doing out in Denver,
But would he be doing that if he was on the Colts?
I think so. Because he was already in that system. They have the talent.
The players were gone, and like look at the players he has around him. Like, I mean, Julius Thomas has been, he's like, a third or fourth year tight end, and he's having a monster year. You have Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker, Wes Welker.
Eric Decker had a great game last week.
Absolutely. Wes Welker, I think, went to Denver because he totally believes that in that system, they can win a Super Bowl.
I think they can, too.
And he didn't feel, and I mean, this is not a knock on... This is not saying what Welker is actually thinking, because I never know. I'm not inside his head. But I don't think he felt that the New England Patriots could actually win a Super Bowl.
Well, the other thing is, New England has been trying to phase him out. Like, even last year, they said, okay, we're going to use Wes Welker less. People got injured. All of a sudden, he was the number one receiver again. Absolutely. And then they trade him away the next year? Getting rid of a Wes Welker caliber player, not the best play.
Yeah, and then you look at Denver is one of those teams that is running a committee running back situation, and it's working. I mean, Noshaw Moreno's done very well. Monte Ball, although he's got the fumble problems, he is a rookie. That's going to happen until, you got to get him the touches so that he can learn to hold on to that ball. And then you have Ronnie Hillman, who's been playing very well. He had a touchdown in the game, I think.
Hillman had some very good runs.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, they're showing that running back by committee, while it sucks for fantasy owners, is great for a football team.
Well, it depends. The Steelers are doing running back by committee, and they're getting like 50 yards a game. It depends on the running backs that you have.
It's true. Committee. You're very true. But they're showing that a running back by committee can work. Is all I'm saying.
Yes.
It's not necessarily going to work for every team, and because you're right, it does depend on the running back situation. And speaking about the running back situation in Pittsburgh, they have announced that Le'Veon Bell will start in London this week when they play the Vikings.
Honestly, I thought Felix Jones was doing pretty good until he had that fumble, and then we never saw him again. Dwyer had some very good runs, and I'm singularly unimpressed with Isaac Redmond.
Yeah, they're suffering right now at the running back position, and I don't know how much Le'Veon Bell will play, but he's going to see a significant amount of snaps, I think, when they take on the Vikings.
I hope so. I hope they get that game going.
So our results from Week 3's picks were as follows. You beat me.
Oh, yes.
By much.
Yes.
The only reason you beat me is because I refused to change my pick of Atlanta and Miami. Even though everybody said Miami had the better shot, and I knew it, I looked at it, Atlanta had a lot of injuries. I actually changed my pick on the CBS site way before the game. So
actually,
the CBS site, I did better there.
On the NFL Pick'em, I changed one of my picks. I went Colts instead of 49ers.
Yeah. So
I'm glad I made that one. I should have done that one earlier, but oh well.
But as far as this show is concerned, you went 8-8, so
not bad.
And I went 7-9, with basically that difference being that Miami game. Because if I would have switched it and picked Atlanta, we both would have been 8-8.
Honestly, not a huge fan of Atlanta. They always choke.
They do, but they usually wait till the playoffs to do it.
Ugh.
All right, so let's get to Week 4, and of course we're going to start with the Thursday night game. The surprising St. Louis Rams taking on the equally surprising, but for a different reason, San Francisco 49ers. Who you got?
Well, at first pick, I want to go San Fran.
I know,
but
it's like
I'm looking at some of the stats here, and Sam Bradford has 6 touchdowns. He's thrown for 891 yards. Kaepernick has 3 TDs.
Yep.
St. Louis, while not that great of a team, is averaging more yards per game, especially in that throwing game. You know what? I'm going with St. Louis at home, just continuing the domination of San Fran.
That's funny. You look at the stats, and Kaepernick has not thrown for over 200 yards in 2 straight games. He has not rushed very well. Their defense is suffering. Aldon Smith is going to be out for another 3 to 4 weeks, which means their run defense there is no run defense in San Fran right now. I think I have to agree with you, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to pick the St. Louis Rams over the San Francisco 49ers on Thursday Night Football on primetime television, because I don't know what the 49ers are doing this year.
No one does.
I mean, not even
Harbaugh knows what's going on right now.
They were predicted to, when I watched
they were the
power
number
rankings,
they were the number one power ranking.
Yes, they were number 1, and Seattle was number 2, and other people would have them the opposite way. Seattle number 1, San Francisco's number 2.
My question is, why was Denver in 3rd?
Denver was my number 1 going in, and this was before the 7 touchdown performance by Manning on the first night of the football season. But,
he has 12 touchdowns in 3 games.
3 games, which is a record, beating, thank God, Tom Brady.
By 1.
Yeah, but he still broke it, and huge. And I mean, he probably could have had another one, but they gave that last touchdown to Ronnie Hillman, who deserved it. I mean, he made that 19-yard run that was almost a touchdown. They reviewed it. It wasn't, so they just let him plow it in. I mean, why not, right? The guy did all the work. Give him the chance to score. But, yeah, I think I agree. I have to go with the Rams. 49ers, man, they're not looking like the 49ers of last year at all.
Definitely not. Hopefully that's my only big upset pick I'm going with this week.
All right, so let's move on to the 1 o'clock starts on Sunday. And first up, we got the Ravens taking on the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. This one, I am a Bills fan, as you very well know, as many of the people who will be listening know. However, I have to pick against my Buffalo Bills. It has nothing to do with loyalty. It has everything to do with the fact that Buffalo has no secondary right now. Rodgers was lit up last week. He couldn't block a pass if his life depended on it. He couldn't cover a receiver if his life depended on it. In fact, they showed a stat where his receiver that he was covering was targeted 9 times. One of those times ended up in a pass interference penalty. Another one of those times, he actually made a good play. Of the 7 remaining times, the receiver caught 6 balls for 256 yards. That is hugely bad. And Leotis McKelvin is hurting, and he was their top corner. And as I said last week, he's not really a top corner. They are seriously missing Jarius Byrd. They are seriously missing Stephon Gilmore. And until the Bills can get them back, their secondary is weak. Flacco is not a great quarterback, but even Flacco can throw a ball down the field against those weak cornerbacks and safeties that the Buffalo Bills has. I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan, but in this game, I got to go with the Ravens.
I got to go with the Ravens as well. They're very inconsistent, though.
They are.
But I think they should be able to beat the Bills. I was not very impressed with the Bills last week.
No, like I said, they did not look like a team. I mean, Geno Smith is no, like, Peyton Manning. He's not even a freaking Joe Flacco. Is that right? Joe Flacco?
Yeah.
Okay, he's not even a Joe Flacco. He's a rookie. Straight out rookie. And he lit up the Buffalo Bills. Like, I mean, when you got that weakness and you can exploit it. I mean, another stat, and this is just funny just because I was looking at some statistics. The Buffalo Bills in the last 13 years, and this is their playoff drought, they haven't made the playoffs in 13 years, have given up more 100-yard rushers than any other team in the league. And not only 100-yard rushers, but 100-yard rushers of people that you'd never expect to get 100 yards rushing in a game. Like, you expect somebody like a Marshawn Lynch to come in and run 100 yards on the Buffalo Bills. But Belial Powell? Had anybody even heard of this kid before? Chris Ivory gets hurt, and they put in Belial Powell, and he runs for 146 yards. I mean, even with Bernard Pierce, I think the Ravens can run for 100 yards against the Buffalo Bills right now.
Well, Bernard Pierce is doing pretty good. He's got 144 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's running better than Ray Rice.
I don't know if he's way better. You got to remember last week.
I'm saying he's running better at the moment.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying he's a better overall. I'm saying as of now, he is performing much better.
But he did get a lot of that last week where Ray Rice was out.
True.
So you have to take that into consideration. The more playing time, obviously, you're going to be a better running back. You look at Fred Jackson when he first came to Buffalo. He was known as a backup. And he was backing up, I believe, at that time, Willis McGahee. Which is funny. But he stole the job from Willis McGahee, allowing the Bills to trade him away, which I still think was stupid, because he went on to do very well for Baltimore. At first, not later on. But Fred Jackson got the touches, and he was able to show that he's a very skilled player. That happens in a lot of sports. Sometimes you're buried under other talent, and people consider you a backup, but you're not really a backup, and you come in, you get the opportunity to show yourself. So Bernard Pierce showed himself last week, and I think if he gets to start again this week, because it looks like Ray Rice might miss again this week, I'm looking at another 100-yard rusher against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, you'd never like to see the run game, though. Just once the team sets up the run game, everything else just becomes so much easier.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to play. Yeah, once they try and start that 8-man to try and stop the run, the pass just opens up, and any quarterback can just kill against that.
Especially against the weak Buffalo secondary.
And Flacco's going to be throwing to Torrey Smith, Dallas Clark, Brandon Stokely.
Yeah. So I still think the Ravens are going to come away. I'd be happy to be wrong on this, but I have to go with the numbers, and on this one the Ravens are going to beat the Bills. So let's move on to the next game, and we got the Arizona Cardinals moving into Tampa Bay, taking on those Buccaneers that are looking hapless.
My money's on Arizona.
Yeah,
that's a battle of the basement.
The battle of the basement.
This is the kind of game where when it's the only game on your TV, you go, I'm just going to watch the game for the stats at the bottom and hope that's a little bit, because that's probably more exciting.
Yeah, well, thankfully it's on Fox, so I can watch something on CBS. I prefer the CBS casters anyways. So yeah, the Cardinals, I have to go with that. That's no-brainer. Tampa Bay has no quarterback. Josh Freeman looks like crap. Patriots, while they are still the New England Patriots, they're not the New England Patriots of old. They're a different team. They still walked in and walked away with a 23-3 victory. So I think the Arizona Cardinals go in there and they also beat the Buccaneers.
The Buccaneers need help.
Yeah. So the next game I got up here is the London game. The Steelers taking on the Vikings in merry old London, England at Wembley Stadium.
Well, my pick is going to be obvious because as a loyal fan, I never bet against my team. My money's on Pittsburgh. They're both 0-3, but Pittsburgh walks out at the 1-3.
This one is actually very tough for me. You've got the Steelers who can't score, but their defense is still pretty solid, although, didn't look solid at times.
That is the only problem with the Steelers' defense. It's almost as good as it has been in the past. They're just missing the takeaways.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, too, is because the offense is sputtering, the offense is not there at all. Basically, the defense is on the field too much. They're just tired out. Because you look at their games early in the quarters, they're playing really well. But once we get into the third quarter, fourth quarter, that defense is just run down because the offense can't stay on the field.
Though, in their defense, their offense did click at moments in the game until they turned it over. If Roethlisberger can stop throwing those interceptions, then did you see how Antonio Brown played? He had over 100 yards.
Yeah.
Big scores. He had one 40-yarder. He was making plays. When they can connect,
the ball over.
That is the only problem. If they can avoid those turnovers and find whatever's missing and put that stuff together, Minnesota doesn't stand a chance. But on the other hand, Pittsburgh has to be able to stop the run.
The Vikings' defense isn't as good as the Bears.
Few are right now.
Exactly. Kansas City's pretty darn good, but the Vikings' defense is not as good as the Bears. But their offense, running the ball anyways, is definitely better than the Steelers right now. Passing the ball, not so much. But, you just stack the box, right? You force Ponder to pass, and maybe the Steelers can get those turnovers. This one's a really tough one for me. Both teams don't look great. Even though you got Adrian Peterson on one side, you've got that tough Steelers D on the other. You could flip a coin on this, and so I'm going to go to what I picked on my CBS one, so let me just...
Don't hurt me here, Ray. Don't hurt me.
I picked the Steelers. I did pick the Steelers. So I picked the Steelers.
You almost started a feud there.
Like I said, though, it really is a coin flip at this point in time. I know you're a Steelers fan, and maybe I should have picked the Bills just because I'm a Bills fan, but I'm also looking at the numbers, and I just can't do it. I love the Bills, and I hope they win, and I'll be rooting for them to win, going against my pick, but I definitely don't think they have it.
See, I think there's a little bit more than just the numbers, and every once in a while you just got to go with that emotional pick, that emotional play, because sometimes those teams they sit down, they grind it out, and they just get that.
I'm not expecting a ton from the Bills this year. They're using a rookie quarterback who's still learning a new system. That entire team's got a new coaching staff. They're playing a new defensive scheme. They're a rebuilding team fully this time. They're actually saying we're a rebuilding team. We're not trying to retool or, stock up. They are in a rebuild. This year, though, give Manuel as many touches as you can. Let him learn, even if it's learning through turning the ball over and that, which he hasn't done a lot. That is one thing I can say. Manuel has not turned the ball over. You know what his biggest problem is? I don't know if you saw any of the highlights. He overthrows.
I saw a couple.
He overthrows a lot, especially on the sideline patterns.
Maybe Buffalo should have signed Mike Wallace instead of Miami. He's hard to overthrow.
No, the way he's throwing, he's overthrowing big time. And I'm looking at him the guy's wide open. He's got too much power in his arm, if that's even a problem. I think he's got to learn the touch. If he had, and Kevin Kolb was not the guy to bring in. If he had somebody who could actually mentor him, like a Peyton Manning, that would be awesome, but, there's no way he's going to Buffalo. But I'm just saying, if you have that veteran presence, you can get better. So the only way he can get better is to actually play the games and keep working every week. I think the Bills are going to be a better team later in the season than they are right now. But I digress because we're moving on to a game that I think we're both going to agree on the pick, and that's the New York Giants going into the Kansas City Chiefs home and taking on the Kansas City Chiefs.
I dare say Kansas City's about to go 4-0.
I dare say you are correct, sir, because I don't see anything from the Giants that shows me I should change my mind about them. In fact, in that fantasy league that I had Eli Manning, he is now not only on the bench, he's off my team.
Honestly,
guess who I picked up? Alex Smith. Alex Smith was still available, so I picked Alex Smith up, and I'm going to put him up against the Giants this week.
I like Alex Smith. I don't think Kaepernick's the better quarterback against Alex Smith. That's just my personal opinion. But Alex Smith is not the guy you go into a fantasy draft and go, you know what? Alex Smith in the first round.
Exactly. Like, you pick a guy. Well, I wouldn't pick Eli in the first round either, but in a draft going into a season, I'm going to pick Eli over Alex. But after 3 games and like multiple turnovers, how can I not go with Alex Smith, who's showing that he can play this game very well? And you know what? It's not just Alex Smith. Alex Smith was not great in San Francisco, but he was an efficient quarterback. He got the job done. Not well enough, apparently, because they went with Kaepernick. And then when you're San Francisco, you have basically 2 number 1 guys in their minds. Like, forget what other people think. In their minds, they had 2 number 1 guys. You can't hold one back. You gotta let one of them go. They decided to go with Kaepernick because that's who they went with in the playoffs. You can't deny what he got them to the Super Bowl. Can't deny what he did, but he had very little experience going into this season. And now you look at them; they're 1-2. Both of us have picked the Rams, so they're possibly going 1-3.
I just want to point out, Eli Manning has thrown 5 touchdowns. Which, week 3, it's not terrible. It's not that great.
But how many interceptions has he thrown?
He has thrown 8 interceptions.
Exactly. The touchdown to interception ratio, look at Big Brother Peyton. 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now, not many quarterbacks are going to do that.
No one is comparing to Peyton Manning this year. He is on fire.
But, I mean, you cannot have you got the stats up? Do you know what Alex Smith has?
Yes, I just pulled them up right now.
Okay. 6
Alex
touchdowns.
Smith has 4 touchdowns.
4? Okay, I thought he had 6. But 4,
0 interceptions.
0 interceptions. Okay, now this is a quarterback playing for a team that is 3-0. When we look at a quarterback playing for a team that's 0-3, we see 5 touchdowns, which is more touchdowns, yet 8 turnovers. And that's that stat. You circle that stat. That's the reason why the Giants are 0-3, and that's going to continue. That Chiefs defense is right now rock solid. Like, I've picked them up.
This is why I like Alex Smith. He's not a flashy quarterback.
Yeah.
But he is solid and dependable. If you get him in the right situation, you make the right play calls. You need the right offensive coordinator or coach for that, and you make sure he makes the safe throws and the good throws to the right receivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You cannot argue with that. I mean, he's averaging not that many yards, around 200 passing yards a game, which is nowhere near what, say, a Drew Brees will do, but he's not turning it over. And they're handing the ball to Jamal Charles.
You have Jamal Charles, and you know who is loving Alex Smith right now? Even though he's not lighting it up because he, like said, the passing yards aren't there, but Dwayne Bowe. Dwayne Bowe said, I've got a quarterback. I've got a guy who can throw the ball very efficiently. So
Jamal Charles has 224 rushing yards over the 3 games.
Yep.
He's averaging 4.3 yards a rush, and he scored 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and they're not a high-scoring team. Their defense is really, really winning them games. You look at some of their final scores; they're not high-scoring games. I dare say I don't have the stats in front of me, but I dare say that the Philadelphia game might have been their highest-scoring one.
They are averaging 23.7 points a game.
Which is not high.
No, but their defense is allowing 11.3.
Exactly. And that's why I think Chiefs are going 4-0. Giants are going 0-4.
Well, the Giants right now are allowing 38.3 points a game, and they're only managing 18.
If I remember correctly, their point differential is like negative 60-something.
Yeah, it's not going well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to those Colts who walked into San Francisco and beat them 27-7, where they're going to walk into Jaguar country and crush them, I think.
Yeah, I think this is a good win for the Colts. I don't see anything in the Jaguars that'll be able to help them out.
The only guy on the Jaguars right now that's anyway half-decent player is MJD, and he has not even been that good this year.
No, 2.6 average, only 115 yards.
Yeah.
But who can blame him?
He's playing on a really crappy team. Never know who's going to be his quarterback week to week. The offensive line is not. The Jacksonville Jaguars are not good at all this year. They're between them and the Browns. I bet you they're going to be battling it out for that first overall pick and come the end of the season. So, even though
now the Browns are winning.
They're winning?
They're doing better.
Yeah, they have one win.
Jacksonville's winning in the battle for the
basement.
The
battle for the basement, exactly.
Well, I'm not going to lie. Pittsburgh and Minnesota are putting up a pretty good run, too.
Yes, they definitely are, but one of them is going to have a win after this week. So we both picked Pittsburgh, but one of them is going to come out of there with a win. So definitely doesn't have to happen. We have seen a tie in the recent years, which was just crazy.
Ties are not that common, though.
No, they are not. All right, so let's move on because we both know the Colts are going to crush that game. Into another game that not so easy. Seattle, very good, taking on the Texans in Houston.
I'm with Seattle. Seattle's on fire right now, and Houston did absolutely nothing against Baltimore. They scored a whole 9 points.
Oh, I have a theory about that. Continue, sorry.
I didn't see the game, so I wasn't quite sure exactly what happened, but only 9 points with that offense? Yeah. Andre Johnson didn't do much. Arian Foster didn't do that much. Matt Schaub turned the ball over a couple times.
Yeah, like I said, this was a really wacky week. As far week 3 was a really wacky week as far as teams who won and lost. Some of the teams that we expected to win won, but definitely not what everybody was expecting. But in that game, they honored the Ravens, that is, because they played in Baltimore. They honored Ray Lewis. So Ray Lewis was on the sidelines the entire time. Do you remember what I said last week?
Yes.
Ray Lewis was the heart and soul of that team. Between him and Ed Reed, they were the team leaders. Neither of those guys are there. Yet the one game that Ray Lewis shows up to, they end up winning 30-9. Coincidence? I think not. I think that they won that game for Ray Lewis, but they're going to go back to the way they played in the first 2 games, which wasn't very good. And we'll get to the Ravens a little bit later, or did we already do the Ravens? We already did the Ravens. They're going to beat the Bills, so they'll probably win that game. But I think Seattle was kind of, the Texans were kind of put off. Now, I'm still picking Seattle. Don't get me wrong. I don't for an instant think the Texans can beat Seattle. Seattle's just too good. But the Texans will put up a bigger fight against Seattle than they did against the Ravens.
I will see.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next game. We got Battle of the AFC North. The Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Cleveland Browns.
I think this is a good win for Cincinnati.
I think so too. I think Cincinnati takes a little bit of a lead. Actually, they'll probably still be tied with the Ravens because, like I said, the Ravens are probably going to beat the Bills. So Cincinnati beats the Browns. I think that's definitely a given. Even though the Browns won this past week, surprisingly.
Yeah, but they beat another 0-2 team.
They did.
Cincinnati had that really close game against Chicago, and other than that, they've been on winning streaks.
Yeah, Cincinnati's a very good team too. And they're still young. Dalton and AJ Green are their third year in the league now. They're still young guys. But they're so dynamic. They work so well together. You look at their defense. Their defense is not spectacular, but it's a solid defense.
It's getting the job done. That's all that matters.
Exactly. So I think they go into Cleveland and they come away with a win. So let's look at the final 1:00 game, and our friend Adam will definitely be interested in our picks in this one because it takes his Chicago Bears going into Detroit to take on those Lions.
I'm going Chicago. They're undefeated. They're playing very, very well. Cutler's not turning the ball over as much as he has been in the past. I think Trestman has been great influence on Cutler and on that offense as a whole. Their defense, not quite as stingy as it always has been, but still pretty good. Pretty solid. I think they take that. And you know what? The way Green Bay's been playing, I think Chicago might have this division this year.
You know what? I tend to agree with you. First of all, I am taking the Bears, but I could very, very, very much see the Lions winning this just because also their offense is really good. Where their differences is the Lions' defense is not as good as the Bears' defense. And I think the Bears' defense can shut down Megatron, but the key here will be if Reggie Bush plays. if Reggie Bush plays, this game's going to be a lot closer than people are going to want and could come down to an overtime. That's what I think. But I am still picking the Bears. I just like the Lions at home. So I think it's going to be a very close game. And like I said, if Reggie Bush plays, a lot closer than possibly it would be if he doesn't play. I think he's an X factor here. Because you can shut down Megatron and then you've pretty much limited what the Lions can do if Bush is not in the game. If Bush is in the game, now you have to shut down two guys. And while I think the Bears still will be able to do that, it's a lot tougher.
Well, the Bears are only allowing 88.7 rush yards per game.
Yes, but he's not just a running back.
True.
That's why I say it's an X factor, because they will put him in the slot. He will be the Wes Welker of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, but that linebacking core for the Bears, they're scary people.
Oh, they absolutely are, and they're playing very well. They did get an injury this past week, and I know I have it here somewhere.
Melton.
Yes.
Injured, yes.
Yes, so that is going to affect them. But I still think the Bears win this nicely. If Bush doesn't play, they're going to win.
If Bush is running out of getting throws in the flats and up the slot, all I gotta say is you gotta watch out for Lance Briggs.
Absolutely.
If he catches one of those suicide passes, I remember what Lance Briggs did to Marcus Colston a couple years ago. Yeah, you're gonna have to be very careful what kind of plays you're making.
Yeah, so in this one I am going to pick the Bears, but if there's no other games on that I would like to watch, I might be watching this Lions-Bears contest because it could be a great matchup. And I hate watching Fox telecasts, but this matchup looks great, and it would be probably the most interesting of the 1 o'clock games. All right, so let's move on to the 4 o'clock, 4:25 games. First up, we got the New York Jets going into Tennessee to take on those Titans.
Titans.
I've
been very impressed with what the Titans have done. They've had some very close games, and I'm not a fan of the Jets.
And you picked the Titans to beat San Diego last week, where I did not, and you were
came very close. Oh yeah, they did win. That's right.
They did win. You beat me on that one. That was one of the ones you beat me on.
I'm telling you, Tennessee, though I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, I think they will make the playoffs, and I think they're very underrated this year.
You could very well be right. And after last week's game, I am actually going to pick the Titans in this one too. Now, don't get me wrong. The Jets looked fantastic against the Bills. However, if you look a little deeper, the Jets had 20 penalties. How did the Bills not win when there was 20 penalties committed by one team for, I think, over 160 yards? Like, I mean, that's 20 accepted penalties. Don't forget there was penalties that were declined. 20 accepted penalties by the Jets.
I just want to throw some stats out for you right now, why I'm liking the Titans this year. Jake Blocker, not a household name as far as quarterbacks go.
Nope.
But he has 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, only 572 yards, but he does have a very good running back core.
CJ2.
In this way, he's kind of like Alex Smith. He's playing very good, he's not turning the ball over, and he's making the right plays at the right moments.
He's playing efficient.
They only lost to Houston by 6 points. That game came down to the wire, and they beat San Diego.
Yep.
They are playing very well right now, and they're playing very consistent. They also have the running game to help them out. Chris Johnson, 256 yards with a 3.7 average. Not that bad.
No.
Plus, he's been throwing to Nate Washington, who's having a pretty good year, 227 yards. He's averaging 15 yards a catch.
That's pretty darn good. Yeah, the Tennessee Titans have looked good this year, and you're right, they're very, very underrated. And like I said, the Jets committed 20 penalties against the Bills. There's no way they even should have won that game. And I mean, it did come down to basically another blown play by, I forget his first name, but his last name is Rogers. That's all I can remember. For the Bills, I think he's a rookie or a second-year corner. And the Bills had just gone down the field. Great drive, tied it up. Actually, on that drive, New York committed 4 of their 20 penalties. and Buffalo scored to tie it up at 20. And then basically they had the kickoff, they drove a little bit, and then a 40-yard pass to Santonio Holmes that made Santonio Holmes look like the Santonio Holmes of old, which he is not. And, like, you can't do that. Like, you just got all the emotion of tying the game up. The Jets committed 20 penalties, and you lost the game. However,
Honestly,
the Jets cannot go into Tennessee and commit that kind of penalties and hope to win the game. The Titans will exploit everything. And you nailed it. While Jake Locker is not lighting it up, he's got, 3 touchdowns, and you said 500 and some odd yards?
Yeah. Now, I just want to point out, Geno Smith has 801 yards, so he has more passing yards than Locker. He also has 3 touchdowns, just like Locker, but in the big stat where they differ, he has 6 interceptions.
Yes, and here's something else. Of those 800 yards, a lot of them he's getting because they're getting penalties, and they're backing them up, and then he's gaining those yards back. So he's actually having to pass for double
he does have 2 receivers over 200 yards.
Yeah.
Stephen Hill is at 233 with a 17.9 average, and Santonio Holmes is at 218 with a 24 average per catch.
I knew Santonio was over because he had over 100 yards against the Bills.
But I think Tennessee wins this game and proves that they are doing very well this year.
Can't disagree with you there. I think Tennessee is going to win this game, and they're going to say, hey, we're here too. All right, next game up, I think we're going to agree again. We've agreed a lot, actually, this week. Which
I know, it's kind of depressing. I might have to make a random upset pick just to make it more interesting.
Kind of scary, actually. We got the Eagles going into Denver to take on the Broncos.
Okay. I know I said I was going to make an upset pick, but this is not one of them. Philadelphia has not done much. Their defense is very lacking. I think Peyton Manning comes in, and he does exactly what he's been doing in the other 3 games and just obliterates that defense.
If Kansas City can basically light it up in Philadelphia, Denver at home, forget about it. Denver is going to cakewalk through this.
The thing about Denver is their offense is ridiculous. They have a great running game, which, as you mentioned, was by committee. But all three running backs are performing very well.
Yes,
they have more takeaways than they do turnovers.
Yep.
And look who he's throwing to: Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, who came out of nowhere and is doing great this year, and then Wes Welker on the checkdowns,
and then Caldwell even too got in the mix.
Yeah. Plus, Peyton Manning can read pretty much any zone defense. He read every blitz they threw at him last week and just hucked touchdowns.
And who's their punt returner? Holiday, isn't it? Holiday?
I'm not 100% sure.
He's been lights out too. He's been getting them good field position. He's returned kicks like 30, 40 yards. I mean, this team is so well balanced, and their defense missing from last year. Elvis Dumerville, who went over to Baltimore. Von Miller, who's suspended and going to be coming back, but they haven't missed a step. I
have the stats right here for their punt return.
Yeah.
It is Trenton Holiday. He has 11 returns.
Yeah.
For 17.4 yards per average return.
Yeah.
With a long of 81 and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, that was the touchdown, the 81.
On the kick returns, for the kickoffs, he has 2 returns.
Yeah, not many.
17 average with a long of 22.
Yeah, those are tougher because of the stupid rule about moving the kick up.
Yeah.
I miss kickoff returns, man. I miss them so much.
Here's some stats for the Broncos. They have 42.3 average points per game.
Yeah.
Surprising. This is number 1 in the league. They're averaging 486.7 yards per game. Once again, they're in first. And they're averaging 374.7 passing yards per game. Once again, in first.
Oh,
now, their rush yards is a very bad 112, though this does rank 14th.
Yeah, their rushing is not their strong suit. Their passing is it. And I mean...
Okay, if my team is averaging 112 rush yards per game, I'm not complaining.
I'm not complaining, no. I'm not complaining. And when you're doing it with 3 different running backs, you know, I don't think any one of them has had a 100-yard rushing game in these 3 games. They're doing it really by committee. It truly is balanced.
So far on the year, Noshawn Reno's at 160 with a 4.7 average. Monte Ball's at 99 with a 3.2 average. And Ronnie Hillman's at 84 with a 6.0 average.
Yes, Hillman's getting the less of the carries. You got Moreno who starts, so he gets the bulk. Then you got Monte Ball, who spells him when he's tired, and also he comes in on certain situational plays. Usually it's more to go to the flat, but I haven't seen Peyton pass to him too much, but it's usually that kind of play. And then Hillman's been their goal line guy, and he's been their short yardage guy. So, I mean, and you put him in as a goal line guy and a short yardage guy, and yet you just said he's averaging 6.2?
Sorry.
6 point something. Well, he's averaging
6.0.
6 yards a carry. That's freaking impressive.
That's on 14 carries.
3-headed monster, no doubt about it when it comes to their running game. Their defense hasn't lost a beat. They're just too tough. Like, I'm not saying perfect season. You can't say that in this day and age. Anybody can win on any given Sunday. But I can definitely say this. 4-0 Broncos.
I just want to point out, we said Geno Smith had 2 receivers over 200 yards.
Yeah.
Listen to these receiving stats. This is how Peyton Manning spreads the ball. Demaryius Thomas has 307 yards.
Yeah.
Eric Decker has 252.
Yeah.
Wes Welker has 190, and Julius Thomas has 194.
Isn't that awesome?
His 4 top receivers are almost all over the 200 mark, and one of them's over 300.
Do you have Caldwell's numbers?
Caldwell has 2 receptions for 64 yards.
2 catches for 64. He's averaging 32 yards a catch.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's only 2
all
catches.
Of his top 4 receivers are all averaging minimum 10 yards.
Yeah, he's the 4th wide receiver, Caldwell, so he's very, very rarely off the field. No, because Julius is a tight end.
Oh, true.
You got to remember that. Julius is a tight end. So he's the 4th wide receiver, which means he's barely on the field because they do the 2 wide receiver, tight end, running back set, and then there's the 3 wide receivers and the running back, or the 3 wide receivers and the tight end. It's very rare that you get that 4th wide receiver on the field, especially for the Broncos, because the normal time you see 4 wides is when you're 3rd and long. How often have the Broncos been in 3rd and long this year? Not very often. So, like I said, I can't say for sure the Broncos are going to have a perfect season because that's just too impossible in this day and age. But can they go 4-0? Absolutely.
It'll be interesting to see who challenges them this year.
Yeah.
Because so far, they've completely dominated the Giants. They've completely dominated Baltimore. They've completely dominated Oakland. Well, that's not that big of a surprise, but...
Yeah. So let's move on to the next game. The Washington Redskins, the 0-3 Washington Redskins, I might point out. You said they had to win last week, and they did not. I picked the Lions.
But they did play good. They made some improvements. There was some overall improvement in the way they did. RG3 had his best game of the season.
And what did I say?
They did lose.
Week 4, Week 5, we might see the old RG3 back. Well, it's Week 4. Unfortunately, they're going into Oakland to play the Raiders,
who have looked very good this year. Honestly, I'm taking Raiders at home. I watched them play. I was very impressed with the way they played.
We are not going to differ at all today, are we? Because I am also picking the Raiders because I watched that game against the Broncos, and while the Broncos did win 37-21, they won 37-21, which means they gave up 21 points to the Oakland Raiders. Granted, the touchdown that made it 21, the Broncos defense didn't. The first stringers, there was a few out there. But I noticed a lot of second string guys getting in the mix, kind of getting some work in. The Broncos didn't need to stop them on that drive as much as they needed to just end the game. And but I will say this: Terrell Pryor has impressed me very much.
My only problem with that game is he was concussed last week, so they're not saying whether he's going to play this week or not.
Yes, so I'm picking the Raiders. However, you're right. If Terrell Pryor doesn't play, maybe the Redskins come out of there.
No, if they don't have Pryor, the Redskins have this game. Yeah. If Pryor plays and he's healthy,
I will say this:
Raiders have this game.
The 3rd touchdown was thrown by Darren McFadden. That's right. Darren McFadden threw that 3rd touchdown. And I loved it because they had a meme online that had a picture of Eli Manning, who lost 38-0, and they had a picture of Colin Kaepernick, who couldn't throw a touchdown last week, and also who else lost a big Baltimore? Who did they beat? They beat the
Houston,
and they had Schaub, so they had Kaepernick, Eli, and Schaub, and they're all like pouting, and then you had the smiling Darren McFadden, who actually threw a touchdown. It was just great. I loved it. Couldn't believe that I saw that. But, I just don't see how, with Terrell Pryor in there, how they do anything, Washington does anything different. I just don't see it.
Yeah, they definitely got a lot of problems to solve.
They do, and I don't know if it's he says he's physically ready to play, and I said this last week. He's physically ready, but is he mentally ready? And it looks like he's starting to come around. Like you said, they did look better at times last week. But at the same time, they're 0-3, and that's a big hole to climb out of.
They're lucky their division's not that good.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at the next game, and we got the Cowboys going into San Diego to take on the Chargers.
I dislike both these teams, but I'm going to go with the Chargers.
You're going to go with the Chargers?
At home, they've been playing pretty well, pretty good, and I just never like picking Dallas.
I am not sure here. Much as I was very much unsure about the Steelers-Vikings, the Chargers let me down last week in Tennessee. Now, like you said, Tennessee has looked really good, and I underestimated them. I will not do that again. However, Phillip Rivers is inconsistent.
Not this year.
So
this year he's played pretty well. He has 8
right.
touchdowns, 1 interception, and almost 800 yards passing.
He's played well this year, but he's still, in the past, been inconsistent. But so is Tony Romo. Tony Romo is the best choke artist in the league right now.
Everyone remembers that failed field goal.
Everybody remembers that failed field goal. The Dallas Cowboys have no defense. And that's why Chargers at home, I have to agree with you. I'm picking the Chargers. Now, I just want to step back for a second. I wanted to look at the Indianapolis Colts schedule the remainder of the way. Or not, I looked at the wrong team. Damn it. I wanted to look at the Broncos schedule the remainder of the way.
I just want to say, you point out the Cowboys defense is doing bad, but the Chargers have allowed more yards per game, more passing yards, more rushing yards, more points, and more third down conversions.
Yes, I know that, but I'm saying the Dallas Cowboys has not looked good, which means this could just be an old-fashioned shootout. And in that case, I still pick the Chargers.
Yeah.
Because I think just they have a few more weapons than relying on Tony Romo, and I'm sorry, I don't rely on
the only problem, they have to shut down Dez Bryant.
And that is tough.
Tony Romo is just tossing to Dez Bryant.
Okay, so I finally got the right schedule. Here's the Broncos' remaining schedule. Okay, they got the Eagles, as we said this week. Then they get the Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Colts, the Redskins, their bye week, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Titans, the Chargers, the Texans, and finish with the Raiders. Now, in that, right now, there's only 3 games I can see them having trouble with.
New England, Kansas City.
And that's pretty much it. Because they play Kansas City twice. That's why I say 3 games.
Well, I don't know. Houston might do something good near the end of the season because
at that point
they are a playoff team.
Yeah, but at that point it might not even matter. If depending on what the record is for those Broncos, they might be resting a lot of guys, because the Texans are the second last game of the season.
Yeah.
So at that point it might not even matter. Like seriously, looking at the schedule. They're almost like the Patriots. I don't know what happened, but the Patriots and the Broncos seem to have quite easy schedules considering they were the 1 and 2 teams last year, and you're supposed to be playing the 1 and 2 teams from most of the divisions. So it's supposed to be a tougher schedule, but looking at this, it is so not tough. But the Broncos don't seem to have a serious threat.
Well, they do also play the Colts. The Colts aren't that bad. And it'll be interesting to see what Peyton does against his old team.
They are in Indianapolis, so that's going to be a huge game. Peyton Manning returning.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I believe last year when they played the Colts went to Denver. So this is, I believe, his first return to Indianapolis. And it's a Sunday night game.
Yes.
And that's October 20th. Ooh, looking forward to that. That's only 4 weeks.
That's going to be a great game.
That's going to be an amazing game. That one I'm looking forward to. So that'll be their first challenge as far as teams with good records are concerned. But I think their first real challenges are going to play that very good right now Chiefs defense in week 11, then the Patriots in week 12, and then the Chiefs again right after that in week 13. That stretch of games is going to be very monumental. But that Colts game I'm definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. That'll be a very good game to watch.
All right, so let's get to the final game of Sunday, not the final game, but the final game of Sunday. The Sunday nighter is the New England Patriots going into Atlanta to take on the Falcons.
I'm going Patriots. Atlanta has not done much. I'm not very impressed with the way they're playing. And Tom Brady, even with that rookie wide receivers, is still being consistent. Tom Brady, he's still making the ball, he's still making those passes, and he's still getting the touchdowns. I'm going Patriots.
All right. I hate myself. Which you know what I mean when I say I have to go with the Patriots as well. I don't know how Atlanta can succeed without Steven Jackson, without Roddy White, without a lot of their defensive players that have been injured. They are hurting badly right now. This is the perfect time for a very inconsistent Patriots team to go in there. And I know Brady's looked pretty much okay, but he threw his helmet. He had frustrations in that Jets game in week 2. He has not been the typical Tom Brady. Everybody used to say, oh, Tom Brady can make any receiver look good. Well, they're proving this year, no, he can't. Because the receivers still have to have some talent. And it's just, there's so many young guys on that team. He's looked very inconsistent. Personally, and this is not just because they played the Bills in week 1. Seriously, watching those first 3 games, the Patriots should really be 1-2 right now. And that's honestly my honest opinion. That's an unbiased opinion. 1-2 is what the Patriots should be right now.
I disagree. I think they deserve their 3-0.
I have to completely disagree with that. They should have lost that Buffalo game. That was poor coaching, not poor playing. It's poor coaching. And the Jets game easily could have lost that game. Okay, at best, 2-1. They should have lost that Buffalo game. I'm sorry. That was bad coaching. The coach made a decision to stick to his game plan, and you can't do that when you play the Patriots. You have to run out that clock. You can't go no huddle in the final 5 minutes when you have a very slim lead. It's not like they had a 2-score lead. They had a lead that was easily overtaken. So, at best, Patriots should be 2-1. Honestly, I still think they should be 1-2. However, a win is a win. As we said last week, sometimes it's lucky to be good and good to be lucky. Patriots are 3-0. After this week, I think they're 4-0. Speaking of 3-0 teams, let's go to the Monday Nighter where we have 2 of them battling it out on Monday Night Football. Who would have ever thought you'd see the Dolphins on Monday Night Football 3-0? Not me.
Hey, they're playing really good. They're doing very well.
Not denying that, but they're playing 3-0 and they're taking on the Saints in New Orleans.
As good as Miami is playing right now, I think Drew Brees at home has got this.
As you said last week, my boy Drew Brees is not going to let this one slip away. They're, honestly, in my opinion, and I'm not an expert, but in my opinion, the Saints are not going to lose any home games this year. They will be 8-0 at home. What they do on the road will differ. They will be 8-0 at home. There is no way, no how that Sean Payton being there is going to let that team lose at home. So they've already got 8 wins, in my opinion. They just need a few more, and they're in the playoffs. But the Saints are going to win this game. Sorry, Dolphins. I know you're 3-0, and I know it'd be great to go 4-0 to keep pace with the Patriots. But do that when you play the Patriots. That's all I say about that. Because the Saints are winning this game on Monday Night Football. Drew Brees is too good. That team is too good. Too many weapons for Drew Brees. He still has so many weapons. He's a fantasy player, fantasy league manager's nightmare because if you have him, you're happy. If you have his receivers, you're not so happy because you never know which week, which receiver is going to be the target.
Well, right now it's Jimmy Graham for the most part. He has 23 receptions for 358 yards, an average of 15.6 yards a catch, and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Drew Brees has thrown 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
4 of them have been to Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham, tight end.
But then you have Marcus Poulsen with 14 receptions, 202 yards with an average of 14.4 yards per catch. And guess who his third highest receiver is?
Lance Moore.
Darren Sproles.
Oh, yeah, I should have known that.
16 receptions and 163 yards.
Should have known
with
that.
A 10 average.
Because they like to play him in the slot a lot. They like to move him around in the backfield. He'll catch the swing pass. I just want to point out,
Darren Sproles has 18 carries on the ground.
Yeah.
And 16 receptions.
Almost as many receptions as carries. And that's the type of player he is. Like, it's all in a fantasy league, you always want to get Sproles, especially if it's a PPR league, because he's always getting the ball. I mean, it's like crazy. Like you just said, there's been 23 receptions from the tight end, okay? Now, that would be 23 points technically if it was a PPR. However, let's turn around and look at Sproles. He has 18 carries plus 16 receptions. That's what, 34? Yeah, 34 points for a PPR league. So he has more points in a PPR league than the man who's caught 4 touchdowns.
That's just impressive.
Yeah. So, I mean, Saints definitely on Monday night are unfortunately going to give the Dolphins their first loss. I mean, not unfortunately. I mean, the Saints are going to be really good this year. Sean Payton's back. This is a year that he's instilling the heart and soul back into the New Orleans Saints. And the Dolphins are going to be 3-1, which is still impressive. As I said.
Honestly, though, I'm looking at the stats here for the Dolphins. I wouldn't count them out of giving the Patriots a run for that division.
Oh, I'm not. No, that's why I said the Dolphins just need to win those games against the Patriots. Even if they just win the one in Miami, win it at home, defend your home field, they're going to compete in that division because they've already gotten off to that 3-0 start. You get off to that quick start, you can have a solid season then, and the Patriots might have to look behind them now.
Yeah.
The Miami Dolphins are chomping at the bit.
They definitely are. They're definitely playing very good this year. Who would have thought? Both Kansas City and Miami are 3-0.
3-0, and we already predicted one of them to go 4-0.
Whereas you have teams like the Packers, 1-2. Falcons, 1-2.
Niners.
49ers, 1-2.
It's
the Eagles,
crazy.
1-2.
Yeah, everybody says like the Eagles should be better, and you know what? They kind of should be, but they had a crappy year last year too.
True.
Like, I mean, you brought in a new coach. What players did you bring in? Nobody. You didn't.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just that change that you need.
Sometimes it is. It worked for Chicago. Chicago's 3-0 with their new coach. They didn't change many players. In fact,
now, mind you,
they
in
lost.
Chicago's defense, they were having a great year last year, leading the division until Cutler and Forte got injured, and then they lost like 6-7 games in a row.
Yeah, and you take away. But see, here's the thing too. You, as the Bears, you lose Brian Urlacher again, another heart and soul guy of the team. Yet they are still performing very well defensively, whereas the Baltimore Ravens have not. So it really the coach can make a difference. I'm not saying the coach can't, but in Philadelphia, it doesn't seem to be. Like, they looked impressive in that one game. When I think it was the first game, right?
Yes.
They looked very impressive, but since then, I think they've already tired out that team. Like, Shady McCoy is going to get his touches, he's going to get his carries, he's going to get his yards. Deshaun Jackson is going to get some receptions. Michael Vick's going to take off with the ball. We know that's going to happen. Everybody knows that's going to happen. That's why defensive plan for it. You had Andy Reid coming in there this past week, and he coached that team last year. He knew exactly what that team was capable of, and that's why he went in there and beat them. That was one thing we didn't take into consideration when we both picked Philadelphia to win that game. Andy Reid knows almost everybody on that team.
True, but the Chip Kelly offense is very different than what Andy Reid was running in offense.
It is, but he knows what they're capable of.
True.
He's seen them play, whether they were playing his style or not. Like, their talent level is still the same. Like, Shady McCoy is always going to be Shady McCoy. You know, like you as a running back, no matter what the offensive scheme is, you have one thing to do: hold on to that football and run.
Yeah.
So, I think that we underestimated Kansas City going in there.
I think a lot of teams have underestimated Kansas City.
A lot of people have underestimated Kansas City.
Same with Miami.
But I'm not underestimating them anymore. They're looking too good. Their defense is too good. And to me, you say it a lot, and people say it and don't really mean it, but defense does win championships.
Yep.
And
offense wins games, but defense wins championships.
Exactly. And Kansas City's defense is really strong right now. Well, whether they stay that way the whole season will remain to be seen. I mean, we're only reaching the quarter point right now. Like, the week 4 is the quarter point, right?
Yeah.
No, actually, we reached the quarter point. No, they play 16 games. Why am I thinking 12? I don't know why I'm thinking 12. So this week will be the quarter point. If they're 4-0, which we truly believe they will be since they're playing the Giants, that means they won the first quarter. They're 4-0 in the first quarter. They've got 12 games remaining where they probably at best only need to go 6-6. So, I mean, they're hoping they do better than that, but I mean, if they come away
right now, Kansas City is only allowing 11.3 points a game. They're only allowing 309 yards.
That defense is very stout right now. Like, I've picked them up in leagues where they're available because of how good they're playing. Like, it's insane. And
well, right now, they have 15 sacks, which is pretty impressive for 3 games.
Yeah. I went to, in the league that I'm running, I went to pick up their sack leader, Justin
Houston, with 7.5 sacks.
Unfortunately, somebody who had a higher waiver claim got him. Danny Madden.
They also have 4. They also have 4 interceptions.
Yes, they do. They're a very strong defensive team, and wow, 4-0 Chiefs. Who would have thunk? 2-14 last year, starting the season 4-0.
I believe their turnover ratio was +9 or something.
It's insane. It's insane. Well, I think that's it. We are done for week 4. We'll have to come back next week to see how we do, but
hopefully we did better than last week.
Last week was just crazy all the way around. Like I said, I read off the experts' choices last week. They did not do any better, the quote-unquote experts. I mean, this is what they do for a living. They analyze games and they make their selections.
But I must say, one thing will not change next week. I will beat you again.
I don't think that's possible.
No? How many? No. I thought we only had 2. We might have 2 picks that were different.
I think we have very little picks that are different, so I don't know if that's possible. But we'll definitely see next week. All right, thanks, Tyler, for doing this.
No problem. Thanks for having me on the show.
Week. All right, bye.
Ciao.
So once again, I want to thank Tyler for joining me, and we're going to hopefully do this every week. We're going to try. We're going to keep trying, and that's another week of NFL Pick'em. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you enjoyed the little bit of extended version as we got to do a little bit of review because this was our second episode. Episode 3 next week. Remember, you can find us on anotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. You can also find us on iTunes under Another Podcast and on Stitcher.com. Also, remember, there's lots of shows here on anotherpodcast.com. We have Another Monday with the Another Podcast featuring James and OJ. Then we have Real Tuesday, which is real music featuring OJ and James. Myself, I am back here on Wednesdays with the Warlock Wednesdays Warlock Hour. And here on Thursdays where we're starting to put up this NFL Pick'em segment. This is the title that I've gone with, James. I'm sorry if it's not a Thursday-related thing yet, but this is definitely what I'm going to call it for now until we can come up with a great name for Thursdays that goes with the theme of Another Monday, Real Tuesday, and Warlock Wednesday. Until next week, everybody, this is Razor saying, I'm out.
Hi, I'm Rob Succhetto, and you're listening to anotherpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to Another Podcast from anotherpodcast.com. Don't forget to go on iTunes and or download right from anotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Another Podcast. Be sure to check back for tomorrow's show only on Another Podcast, your Canadian podcast network. Anotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor.